Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Miles Teller, star of The Offer on Paramount Plus. Miles, you play Al Ruddy, producer of The Godfather, legendary producer. What were your initial conversations like with him about, playing him and I guess the role and like what he went through, obviously, because the show is based on his experiences, obviously, producing The Godfather.
Right. Well, yeah, my initial conversation with Al, I went to his house and I met with him, and that was before I'd officially signed on, although I think I was pretty confident that I was going to do it. And yeah, I just sat with Al. He talked to me in his kitchen, not his backyard, and he said that's a good sign. He said that means that meant that he liked me, and if he didn't care for me, he would talk to me outside. That's where he talks to certain maybe types of people. But yeah, we just sat in his kitchen, and he just kind of started recalling stories from The Godfather and his life, and I sat with him for probably 3 hours. And he's a legendary figure. He's had a legendary career, so I got more than I needed in those 3 hours with Al.
So obviously, I feel like you're from seeing other interviews, I feel like you are definitely like a person who likes movies and like watches movies. So obviously, I was like, I'd imagine that had to be fun, like hearing some of his iconic stories. I'd imagine.
Oh, so much. And even when I read the scripts, I think when they first reached out to me, I think they had maybe 7 episodes written, and just I sped through those 7 episodes, and it was like what you were saying, where I felt so privileged to be getting all of this kind of behind the scenes information. We really stood on the shoulders of Nicky Toscano and and Tolkien and people who had done just such an immense amount of research for us to be able to be delivered these scripts that were, packaged in a very entertaining way with very, kind of lively and complex characters. But yeah, 100%, man. And when I'm meeting people kind of just out in public who are really into the show, they're so appreciative of just, all of the kind of behind the scenes stuff that they now know about The Godfather. And so many people have come up to me and said they immediately went and watched The Godfather kind of, in the midst of watching our show, which is great. I think it's a celebration of one of the greatest movies, if not the greatest movie ever made. And I think that's the approach that we all took. We really just wanted to celebrate everybody involved, because it was a monumental task, as people are seeing, to get this movie made.
Did you go back and watch it before what was your relationship with rewatching Godfather around the project, I guess? Were you like, I'm going to watch it beforehand or wait to the end? Like, how did you do it?
No, I mean, that came kind of during production. I had rewatched The Godfather just as a fan.
Yeah.
But for the most part, my research before I started filming, really, I was just trying to gather as much information as I could on Al. And luckily enough, there was a good amount of stuff online with Al while he was making the movie, including when he kind of got suckered into that press conference, with the mob, where he didn't know what he was stepping into, and he kind of got bamboozled a little bit. And so seeing him operate in that moment, I found to be really insightful, because he chooses his words so carefully. I mean, he's like a lawyer. He's a surgeon. There's just such a poise to him, such a refinement as he's dealing with, some really corrupt individuals. And I just little moments like that, being able to see some clips like that, I felt like just gave me a really good insight into him.
Yeah, that scene is really great, because I remember watching it. I was like, I did not know that he got so sandbagged like that. It's just is like, oh shit, like that's really not a great situation to be in.
No, and I mean, yeah, front page Variety, and then they're trying to sell it that stock was way down. So it's all true. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah. One of the things I kept watching, this is fun, this maybe sounds weird, but watching it, I was like, oh, some of it reminded me, obviously it's about the making of The Godfather, but specifically like the end of Goodfellas, where Ray Liotta as Henry Hill is kind of like throughout the May 11, 1980 scene. He's like juggling a million different things, right? And everything is like, has to have the same like level of attention to detail. So he's like, I'm making all this meat or whatever it is. And I felt like you as a producer have to do that, or playing a producer or doing that a lot, where it's like everything from like the biggest headache to like a small little like personality thing with Francis or whatever it is. And I guess, how did you think of it, like playing a producer in that regard? Obviously, I know you're an executive producer on this. I know I think you've got your producer on a upcoming project and stuff. So I know it's not like totally foreign to you, but I just found that part really compelling, I guess.
No, and that really kind of summarizes what Al's dealing with really in this show. I remember early on there was a scene where something comes up and then Al comes up with a solution pretty quickly, and I took a little bit of time to think about that in the scene, in the reality of the scene. And I remember Dexter just telling me, like, Al, he's not a thinker, right? Like he's a man of action. He's a doer. And so that's that. And that tends to kind of define a lot of the character of Al's, that a problem comes up. Yeah, he deals with it. Something else comes up, and then these things kind of get layered, and obviously the tension start rising and the stakes get higher as the show goes along. But I did, man. I actually sent Al a text and I said, Al, it is so fun playing you. I go, man, did you have to keep a lot of balls in the air at the same time? And so that for me as the actor, that was something I enjoyed. I'd never quite played a character that just has so much kind of forward momentum, and somebody who it's like I said, a man of action. And I think that's a really concise way of kind of talking about what Al's really dealing with in this.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why the show is so entertaining, because you have so much forward momentum, right? And it's a very energetic show, and I think the performance is indicative of that. I just found it's really compelling and fun. I got to talk to Juno Temple, who obviously you share a lot of scenes with. And
I love Juno, man.
She spoke very highly of you as well. And she was like, oh, he was such a great, like, basically like you were such a leader on the set and like kind of like top lining this project like you have. I guess, how much did that mean to you, and how much did you think of the responsibility of being like the top guy on the call sheet, like on a show like this?
That meant a lot, and has, I think, continued to mean a lot for me for a while. The very first film that I was a lead of a project was called Get a Job, and it was with Bryan Cranston and Anna Kendrick, and now the very, very well-known Nicholas Braun. And Mark Maron has a cameo in that too. And I just remember feeling like undeserving of it. I just remember feeling like, here's all these other actors, their resumes are much more kind of fulfilled than mine, and why am I don't know, I didn't own it. And then the next opportunity I had to be a lead was in The Spectacular Now, and I felt like that was a lead. I remember saying this to myself, I'm like, it was like a lead actor boot camp. And I said, I'm going to approach this one differently and really own the fact that I am the lead of this, and being number one on a call sheet is something that I think really should be taken with a heft of responsibility. It is something I take a lot of pride in, and it's not ego-based whatsoever. If anything, that should be the lowest thing on there. But what it is taking responsibility for that. I think a bit of the tone, a bit of the vibe. A lot of sets are kind of dictated by number one on the call sheets, ego and personality, and the directors. And so for me personally, I just always wanted to be obviously the most prepared, as prepared as I could be there for the other actors, not be somebody who does the scene, then goes to their trailer. Like, I enjoy talking to the crew. I enjoy hanging out with the crew, which was tough with COVID. But yeah, man, I'd get coffee trucks for the crew. Like, I don't know, not every Friday, but a lot of the time, and just trying to keep morale up and just be a good person, man. I really think you're spending so much time with these people. The performance, these people could really care less about at the end of this. When people watch my performance, like, that doesn't mean anything. It's like they're going to talk about who I was as a person for those 7 months working with them, and that means a lot to me. And so yeah, it's something I always try and carry with a great amount of responsibility. You want to be the person who kind of carries that torch. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's a
I mean, it's,
responsibility that I
yeah.
take really too.
Especially at something like this, like you said, you spent so many months. It's just a big undertaking, right? Like obviously, like a Spectacular Now, also great movie. Not, I'm sure you didn't shoot that for 7 months, I would imagine. So like this is just like much bigger. Guys, one of the things
we're doing, it's like 6.5. We basically had 10 days per episode.
Okay.
So it's, it's a solid like 6 pages every day. Al, as people I think are seeing, I mean, he's really in almost kind of every scene, and I never really worked at the pace that we were doing this show. I just had, I did a limited series with Nick Reffin, but I think I said maybe 10 lines that whole show.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was a different thing, but that's what I love. I don't care if you have 2 lines in a commercial, you're still going to go through the same, I think, mechanics as an actor and kind of prepping and this and that. But no, it was a large undertaking for all of us, for sure.
Do you think you're like I mean, it may be hard to quantify, but do you feel like you're a better actor having done this and gone through the rigors of this kind of show where like you say you're in almost every scene? Okay.
I hope so, because by that, it just means, hopefully I learned something. And I think what's really humbling about this business, about this craft, is you always get out of it what you put into it. So if you think you can kind of maybe take it easy a little bit or something, it'll rear its head. I think being unprepared is probably the biggest reason for failure a lot of the time.
Yeah. One of the other things I love about the show too is how it is, obviously, like you said, it's a show, limited series and stuff, but it has such a reverence and respect for the theatrical experience, which I really enjoyed as a person who likes movies. And I guess, how did you think? I mean, I would consider you, obviously this is a TV show, I consider you a movie star also, like whatever that means. Like, how did you consider those kind of conversations, where, especially like with regard to like Brando, like I'm not doing TV or something. I just found that really clever and funny.
I know. Yeah, right. It's a little meta. It's it's something obviously the writers were very much aware of, but also the kind of the irony of it, right, is that we're in the golden age of television, and so many, you used to have the Golden Globes where it was, the cliche was, oh, there's the really pretty TV actors, and over on this side's the kind of ugly, grimacing, film actors. And it's just everybody's seated at the same table. It really is. I think the scripts and long form, and people being able to, in their mind with these limited series, tell a 10-hour movie. I think that's wonderful, man. I think you're seeing the medium kind of stretch itself, and it's just been it's never been a better time for an actor and for audience members too, although I'm sure they're a little probably overwhelmed because there's so many, you can't watch everything. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's true. Yeah. I think the other thing is, like, a lot of this stuff we're watching now, maybe because of the way the industry has changed or whatever, it would have been like a movie, maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Now it's like a long form thing, which is really cool. I want to add you, like, I guess, can you talk about, like, I feel like with Al, and then obviously like you're in Top Gun right now playing Rooster. Those are guys who I feel like are maybe undervalued or not maybe undervalued or not taken initially as seriously as they should be or as formidable as they are. And I guess I found that, I think, even though it's weird to connect like this to Top Gun, I did see that kind of like those characters had that in common. I guess, did you think of that at all? Or obviously Top Gun you shot, I'm assuming, way before The Offer, because it was COVID delayed for a couple of years. So it's not like you were like, oh, I'm going to, like, this is a theme I'm seeing, but I just found that really compelling. And I think you play that really well, is it, like, in these performances, I guess. Is that something that you like? I don't know. Why do you think that is, I guess? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I'd always, even just in life, I guess, I'd rather always be underestimated than overestimated, because then it gives you some room to, surprise people. But I think in The Offer, and kind of what, they really are, they're a band of misfits. They're all kind of underdogs in their own right. Not a lot of people bet on any of them. They kind of got their shot. That was their one really big shot, and they took it. So I think collectively we all in this show have a bit of that, of that underdog to us. Obviously you have, you know, the Bob Evans who personified Hollywood at that time, and what Matthew's doing with him, and you got Byrne, and their characters are in different places, but yeah, I think I do, just as a person and maybe as an audience member, I tend to maybe gravitate towards that
The underdog. That
yeah, the
actually is
underdog.
really smart.
Yeah, I do, I do like
Yeah. And I think that's why the show is a success too, because you're watching these guys like kind of pull it off, right? Like it's like they're all underestimated, like you're saying, and then it's like they
almost
get
the
to
greatest movie almost never made, I think, is
right,
the
right. When you're
tagline.
with like in those scenes with like you said, like Matthew Good as Robert Evans, I think that's such an amazing performance. He's so fun, and like Bern Gorman obviously is Charlie Bloodhorn, and even like Justin Chambers is Marlon Brando. When you're watching, and I could go down the list, like everybody is like when they're playing these real people who people have such a relationship with. As an actor, I found it really compelling because you have to like react to them like they're this maybe sounds silly, but you have to react to them like they're the real people, right? So like when you're watching Marlon Brando in his house like turn into Don Corleone, so much of that is on you, and like the scene, your scene partner is responding to what he's doing, right? So like I'm an audience member, then being like, oh yeah, I got this. Like I know that they're looking at Don Corleone right now, right? And I just found that really compelling. Can you talk about like how you kind of did that with those like actors playing the real people but not overdoing it? I guess I think that part's really cool.
Well, it helps that I think everybody they brought in was not doing an imitation, but they really did capture something about whoever they were playing. Justin with Brando, I think Dan Fogler's talked about this, but when we did that scene, Dan might say that was his favorite scene to actually shoot, because you felt like you're kind of in Brando's house. And I thought Justin just did such a wonderful job with that. I mean, Brando's one of the most mimicked actors of all time, right? Especially his performance in The Godfather. I mean, it's borderline like Elvis. People are going to start getting married because I don't think they're doing the Elvis Vegas thing anymore for some reason. So maybe they'll get married by Brando, maybe The Godfather. But no, it just helps when you have other actors who are taking it, very seriously, and I think are doing such an incredible job. It allows you, that suspension of disbelief becomes even greater, I think. And there were a lot of times on this where we would be on certain sets and be in certain scenes, and you felt like you were there, either in the 60s, 70s, or when they're shooting The Godfather on the set and we're on the Paramount lot. There were a lot of moments that I felt like you didn't really have to act that much. You just had to kind of be present.
Yeah, and last thing here before I wrap up, and thank you for your time, because like it's a lot of fun talking about this show with you.
Yeah.
Do you have like what kind of feedback or any surprising feedback or anything about like the show that you've seen now since it's aired? Obviously, we're talking here on June 9th. I don't think the finale airs until next week, so like hasn't wrapped up yet. But The Godfather does get made, as it turns out. They do make it. Not to spoil it, but anything like any feedback or anything that you've gotten that you're like, oh, that's really cool.
I mean, it's just been nice to just hear people talking about it and staying up to date with it, because it's episode by episode, and I've never been a part of something like that. I've never been in this world really, other than the Nick Refn piece. So that's just really been fun, and I totally understand why people enjoy this medium so much. And there's something to be said too about something that comes out weekly as opposed to binging it. I love both, but it's nice, man, because you get that built-in anticipation with the audience as well. And so when you hear people that are up to date with it and they're so excited and they felt like you just gave them a cliffhanger, that's fun. I've never really had that, and I see the satisfaction in it.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun medium, but it is a really good show. The Offer limited series on Paramount Plus. Miles Teller plays Al Ruddy. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Chris, you got it. Thanks, buddy.